wonderful panel discussion on Thursday night.
You're welcome.
I think the
Thank you.
panel was really great, but that's not what we're discussing this evening.
No.
I
But we
think
have to,
that
get the pleasantries out of the way too.
well, the thing is that Israel, Palestine, Hamas, this is something that I think people really need to understand. The complications, the ins and outs, the details. It's going to be helpful to have that understanding.
Hmm. So where do we start with this one? Do we start with 2023? What happened? Was it October 7th? October 7th, October 8th? Or do we go back a couple of years?
I think it's important to go back a couple of years. You could always start, but you're going to have to track back.
How
not
far
just
back are we going?
Well, boy, you know, let me say make 5 quick points.
Mhm.
You know, you remember David and Goliath,
So far back?
and David taking up a stone and slaying Goliath, the Philistines. You know what I mean? Well, there's been ongoing wars between Israel and the Philistines for many, many years.
According to the Bible.
According to the Bible, which is something I believe in, and is a factual document and so on. But archaeological things would have told us about the Philistines and the term Palestinians. No doubt, being a Palestinian would have included the genetics of being a Philistine, plus all sorts of other empires. Over the years, numerous entities came in. You had the Romans, we call the Byzantine Empire. Then you had several other entities. And in the end, the Ottoman Empire. That's the Turkish. And during that time, the Israelis were exiled. King Nebuchadnezzar exiled the Israelites. And then further than that, they were in Europe. The Jews were basically in Europe suffering and so forth. And then sometime in the 1800s, the Ottoman Empire started to fade, and the British, this is where Britain started coming into play. Now, I'm saying all this by way back for people to understand. And then World War I. Guess what? The Ottoman Empire decided to support the Germans who were fighting against the British, the French, and in World War I. And we know what happened. They lost. And as a result, 1917, 1918, 1919, 2020, after World War I, the world decided they were going to mash up what was remaining of the Ottoman Empire. They were going to destroy it and divide it up. This section was divided, given to the British. This section was given to the French. This section was given to the Russians. That's what happened after World War I. And during that time, there was a foreign secretary from England called the Balfour Foreign Secretary, Lord Balfour. And he said he's going to give all the little Arab states independence. And he was going to find a homeland for Israel. Those 2 declarations. Around that time, a movement started. Meant the creation of an Israeli state. The problem was that in the area designated in Palestine, this area that I was telling you about where the Philistines had lived, all this kind of thing, the majority of people living there were Arab. But the plan was to take 60% of the land and give it to the Israelis, to the Jews, and only 38% to the Arabs. Well, the Arab nations around disagreed.
So where were the other 2% going?
Well, basically they were Christians and so forth there.
Oh,
too,
okay.
you know,
right.
but they fitted into both of those. It's an important question. The bottom line is that the Arab states, Egypt, all them other countries, that were already kind of independent said no. But the smaller states, I'm talking about United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and had not been formed yet. They were like just little protectorate. They were under British protected rule after World War I.
Mm-hmm.
Lebanon was under the control of the French.
Mm-hmm.
What then happened was little skirmishes started taking place. And the Israelis has started quickly building up a defense force, a militia. And when the Arabs attacked, the Israelis won that first conflict and decided to take over most of Palestine, even though the majority of people living there with it. And then, guess what happened? World War II came by. And with the Holocaust, Jews fled Europe in their thousands. And where did they go to? Some went to America, some went to England. A lot of them went to Israel, where they were welcome. And the land that they took up was lands that were formerly occupied by Palestinians. Long and short of this is that the amount of people from needing housing, needing land, needing this, that, and all kind of GoFundMe projects came up from businesses around the world to get money to help repatriate these Jews. In the end, the Palestinians there revolted and said, this can't be, you're taking away our land. And by 1948, other wars started, you know, and something called the Yom Kippur War. And then Israel, having beaten the Arabs and Palestinians right there, declared independence in 1950. This is where we were talking about. And since that time, no Arab state initially recognized Israel. That was the problem. No Arab state recognized Israel until later on, after a president of Egypt called Nasser, there became a president called Arafat. And he decided that he would recognize Israel so that Israel could give them back the lands
Sinai.
in the Sinai.
Sinai. I think
Yeah,
something that you skipped over, because I see you passionate about it, was the fact that the UN also split up Israel in a very strange manner and keeping Jerusalem the
UN,
the capital of Israel, as a central capital for both Israel and Palestine,
having an east and a west,
because
part
it
of
was
Jerusalem.
because of all of the
Yes.
tradition and culture in Jerusalem and religious sources.
You're absolutely right, trying to make it, but the division of the Ottoman Empire and cutting up everywhere was really how this came about.
Okay,
You know?
because I never understood how exactly they decided to carve out these lands.
It is called the Sykes division.
Mhm.
In the same way how Europe divided up Africa and didn't realize that a tribe wasn't just on one side of a river, but on the other side of the river, or on one side of a forest, as well as on another side of the forest. In the same way, they made no provision for religion. The Sunni religion and the Shia religion. These are two Arab Muslim thinking. You know, the Sunni believe that, well, governments can be established and you have a leader from elections and so forth, whereas the Shia believe that only descendants of Allah, Muhammad, can actually be a leader, you know? And they worship Islam differently. And some countries are predominantly Shia and some countries are predominantly, But the bottom line is that eventually Britain, that wanted to control the region because of what region? What reason?
oil. Is it oil?
Oil. But
Everything is oil these days.
oil. But there was another reason. The Suez Canal. the Suez Canal coming through here. Now, the conflicts, this thing gets so complicated that President Nasser, he was a hardliner, kind of left wing, sided with Russia in a bit, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And he closed the Suez Canal and said, Britain, you can't go through that. So the British, French attacked him. It was a war. He lost. You know what I mean? And the long and short of it was that the conflicts that are in the Middle East and the way the divisions, you've hit the nail on the way divisions were divisions that were going to create what we call forever wars, forever conflicts. And if you understand that Syria had claims on Lebanon and Iran had claims on certain of the protectorates, Bahrain, and Egypt had claims on Gaza, the Gaza Strip, and those sort of things. It's fascinating, but the long and short is that the people of Palestine, after these wars, many of them had to fled north into Lebanon, leaving the land that they once occupied for the Jews to take over, because more persons have returned and the Israeli state has grown. They've needed more land too. Mm-hmm. They've done a lot to try and convert the desert and everything into land, but they also have felt they need to have a buffer to protect themselves from the forever wars. Let me end by saying that in the area of Gaza, which is a coastal strip that was once really, you could say, part of Egypt, you know, that was Palestine, and because Israel fears that this is going to be an area that arms could come in by boats, they have like a naval blockade of things coming in. And the people there have felt that they can't live. They're stateless. They don't have anywhere to really go, you know? And Hamas basically is one of the political parties in that Gaza Strip area that has risen. They do a lot of educational work and they do a lot of work and so forth, but they essentially control Gaza. And they recently, as you were saying, as you come forward with on previous many occasions, they decided they're going to attack Israel, take hostages, and whatever happens, happens. Knowing Israel and their concept of never again, they are now bombarding Gaza, and they're looking probably to do a land invasion and take over the whole of Gaza and maybe have people move out somewhere to somewhere else. In the past, as I said, the Palestinians fled to Lebanon. Where will the folks from Gaza go? It's unclear, but they have been in a situation where they have not been able to function as a state. The Palestinians, the Palestinians had hoped that after the Balfour Declaration that a home for Palestine would have been declared, but that has never happened. Mm-hmm. You know, and as a result, they are stateless. They have no citizenship. They can't get proper passports. If they were to come to St. Vincent, there's no issue. You don't need to issue a passport because it won't be recognized as a state. So, and that's where we are.
It's also important to know that Lebanon wasn't the only countries. There were about 5 countries, but most important to me is Egypt. the Palestinians would have fled to Egypt before. And now, as Egypt shares a border with them, Israel has now set themselves up politically in the region to a point where Egypt has now closed their doors to Palestinians. So they're really boxed in outside of them being stateless. They really and truly have nowhere to go but to stay on the strip where they have 40 to 60% unemployment. They have poor water systems. The people are dying on top of the war that is happening.
Yeah.
But why close the borders and restrict them from entering?
Well, listen to this. When you had in the 60s President Nasser, who was a left-wing progressive, he was standing up for the Palestinian. We want a Palestinian state and so forth. But then when Arafat came in and he recognized Israel for the first time under the Camp David Accord, President Carter, this is during the time of President Carter, all the Arab states said, Egypt, you should not have done that. And they expelled Egypt from the Arab League. Now, when there was a revolution the other day, several years ago, in the early 2000s, and the Muslim Brotherhood took over, the Palestinians were happy. They now had a champion again, but with a Sisi, where it going back to the old realm. The Egyptians are back in the same line with Arafat. You know what I mean? That thinking that we have an accord with Israel, that's more important, and the Palestinians, you're kind of on your own. However, there is great sympathies still for the Palestinians in Egypt.
This is a topic, right, that we definitely can't fill in the time slot. We definitely would have to come back, because I have my own opinion on how Vincentian should look at this issue, and I sure Christal have her own opinions on the issue in general. But we have to break right now and come back at 8:30.
St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's a whole new world out there. Reaching new customers and getting products faster. That's what it's all about. Ocean freight rates